So just a tiny bit about Flex. Milry did a great job introducing my company. So I will just quickly do it in just to reinforce a few things. What we basically do is we help employers embrace a flexible work model as a way of bringing on a higher level of talent. And that we work mostly part-time. I would say 80% of our positions are part-time positions. Part-time means different things to different people. So we have candidates that are working at a client 10 hours a week, and we have candidates that are working at a client 32 hours a week. So up to 32 hours, and how you work and when you work and how many hours you work is really based on your needs and your desires, and we match them with employers' needs and employers' desires. So that's how it works. And what we find is that this part-time model works great with small businesses. And the example I would give you is often a small business doesn't have the budget to hire somebody full-time, or they don't even have the need. So they might need a CFO or an HR manager, but they just don't need them 40 hours a week. And what we tell them is that if they consider part-time, they now have access to this huge untapped talent pool. So who are those people? They're people like you. They're people who perhaps have an extended career break. We find that many of our job seekers have taken career breaks for caregiving, whether it's for children or oftentimes we see the caregiving now for aging parents, and that's not going to change. We have a huge care crisis in this country brought on not just by the pandemic, but certainly escalated by the pandemic. So we work with a lot of caregivers that are either took a break and are looking to re-enter, or caregivers that need a break. They need more flexibility in order to stay engaged in the workforce, but also meet demands at home. And then we work with a whole bunch of what I would call second career professionals. So people who technically could be at retirement age, but for personal reasons or financial reasons, aren't ready to stop working, but they don't necessarily want to work full-time anymore. So that's sort of the three kind of target audiences for us. And we've worked with over 600 employers, and over, these actually need to be updated, these numbers. I think we've worked over 700 employers, and we have over 20,000 job seekers in our DC Metro network. So my story, before I get to this next slide, I started FlexProfessionals with two other women. I work on, for our company, we have two customers, so to speak, because we're the middlemen, we're the matchmakers. So we have the job seekers on one side and the employers on the other side. I work with the job seekers. That's my specialty. It's my passion. So I do recruiting and screening. I manage the recruiting and the screening for my company. And I also manage programming for job seekers as well as HR for FlexProfessionals. So my business partners and myself, if we combined our gaps in our resumes before we started FlexProfessionals, we were, I think we had at least 20 years, maybe 27 years of a career break between us. I actually had the shortest career break. I had been, I left the workforce in 2005 when I gave birth to my third child. My husband and I both had consulting. He was a partner at a law firm. I was a consultant. We were both billable, and the stress of having two people with billable hours was too much. Something had to give. And when I realized that he was making 3 times as much as I was, he ended up staying in the workforce and I left. and I left reluctantly. I loved working, but I decided that it was best for my family to stay at home. And I immersed myself into being a full time mom and loved that. Um, and 2 years later, so I had been out of work for about 2 years. 2 years later, while I was on vacation um, with my husband and two other couples, he died on the beach of a cardiac arrhythmia. It was super sudden, it was completely unexpected. And at the age of 40, I found myself a widow. I had an 8-year old, a 6-year old, and a 2-year old at the time. I was very lucky in that I didn't have to return to full time work in order to support my children and my family. But after spending about 2 years grieving and worrying about my children, I decided that I needed to do something for myself and I needed to show my children the value of work, that nobody in my household was working. And so I set out to try to figure out what I could do. And I knew that driving downtown and working 40 hours and having that commute wasn't going to work for me. So I do what many women do who can't find what they um, are looking for out in the workforce, they invent it. And so that's how I started Flex Professionals. I needed the flexibility. I knew that I had skills and talent that would be valuable to employers. And there weren't a whole lot of good part-time jobs out there. So I decided I partnered with two other women who had their own struggles of finding meaningful work. And we decided that we had this network of a personal network of talented job seekers and also of employers. And we started from scratch. We had zero job seekers and zero employers, but we used our personal network to create both. And that's what we did. We started small and we grew. And 10 years later, here we are.